Christchurch, I think it should be largely dry through Friday. We have had problems with some extremely windy weather here, and that will continue to be the case over the next couple of days. And if anything, it will turn increasingly wet as we make our way through the weekend. For Southeast Asia, well, it's sunshine and showers with more very heavy rain for Vietnam.
On the next Riz Khan show, a barrier to peace. Former Pink Floyd star Roger Waters adds his voice to the calls for Israel to remove its wall in the West Bank. Riz Khan at this time on Al Jazeera.
The relocation of the Ahmadiyya has magnified the issue of religious intolerance in Indonesia. Is this inevitable in a multicultural society? And is the government turning a blind eye?
101 East at this time on Al Jazeera.
Hello again from Doha. This is Al Jazeera. Our top stories this hour. Funerals have been held in Libya for rebel fighters who were among 14 killed when warplanes bombed the Brega oil terminal on Wednesday. Anti-government fighters say that they've now cleared the area of government forces. US President Barack Obama has warned the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi that the violence against his people must stop.
Those who perpetrate violence against the Libyan people will be held accountable. And the aspirations of the Libyan people for freedom, democracy, and dignity must be met.
Europe is backing the Arab League, which says that it would support a no-fly zone over Libya. But the League's ruled out supporting any direct military intervention. US officials are wary of a no-fly zone, saying that it could mean war. But the British Foreign Minister William Hague says that it's the responsible thing to do.
What we're looking at now is contingency planning. And it's right and necessary that that takes place. While, of course, stressing at all times that actually implementing anything like a no-fly zone must be legal, it must be strongly supported internationally with the participation of many different countries.
Well, the political crisis in Libya has had a significant impact on oil prices worldwide. The country is Africa's largest single holder of oil reserves, but it isn't just supply cuts to world markets that's of concern. As Tim Friend reports, the country's future political recovery could be negatively impacted by a damaged oil industry.
With a protracted fight in prospect, the crisis over Libyan oil grows by the hour. It's Africa's largest single holder of reserves. Officials, Gaddafi loyalists, admit production is half the normal output of 1.6 million barrels a day. The reality is it's probably been slashed by 2/3. And because Libya relies on oil exports for much of its income, a damaged oil industry would radically slow up post-conflict recovery. So how bad is it?
Around 80% of the proven oil reserves are located in and around the Sirte Basin, which includes much of the fighting. Oil has reportedly stopped flowing at the Nafura oil field. The El Bouri oil field off Libya's western coast is the country's largest producing oil field, where production is also affected. Other key areas include the Al Hamra fields and the Mazouk Basin in the south. There, production is continuing as normal, according to the Spanish operator Repsol. Once produced, the crude is piped to the main terminal points for export. Libya exports its light crude from 6 major terminals. 5 of those are located in the east, which has mostly fallen into rebel hands. The Libyan Air Forces bombed the oil terminal town of Brega as pro-Gaddafi troops try to recapture the key port. At the Brega oil facility, production has been slashed and there are few employees left.
It's really the source of government revenue for Libya. I think it's well above 90% of the actual export revenue which the government can collect, which comes from crude and gas and so on. So any kind of future government of Libya will need the hydrocarbon production.
The head of the National Oil Corporation refuses to give any figures on current production levels, but says oil production has halved because foreign workers, most of them technicians, have fled the fighting. He says none of the country's oil installations have been damaged and that Libya is continuing to produce and export. But oil companies can no longer rely on Libyan supplies and will look elsewhere. Tankers at Libyan ports have been demanding $50,000 a day, triple the normal rate. If the crisis persists, supply cuts to world markets could push oil above $130 a barrel within 4 weeks. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera.
In northwestern Iraq, at least 9 people have been killed by a suicide bomber. Police say that the bomber was targeting Iraqi soldiers who are collecting their paychecks at a bank in the town of Haditha. And at least 9 people have been killed in a suicide attack at a police station in northwestern Pakistan. Officials say that a lorry carrying explosives rammed into a security checkpoint in the town of Hangu. Around 30 others were wounded. The blast was so powerful that houses and shops in the area collapsed. Meanwhile, a court in Lahore has ruled that a CIA contractor accused of murder will not enjoy diplomatic immunity. Raymond Davis claims that he acted in self-defense when he shot at the 2 Pakistani men. His detention has strained relations between the US and Pakistan. Our correspondent Kamal Haider has been following the case from Islamabad.
Davis was said to have been, on the day of the incident, Davis is said to have been riding in a private car. It was not registered in the name of the embassy, at which point he says somebody tried to rob him. The Pakistanis, of course, saying that the circumstances were very different, that the people never pulled out the gun. That, of course, is the police reports. But there were a lot of witnesses. This happened in a very busy area of Lahore, and therefore the public outcry became a real problem for the government, because on the one hand, it was the relationship with the United States. On the other hand, it was the backlash from the public. So the Raymond Davis case has, of course, received a lot of attention, a media hype. But it's very difficult for the government to maneuver when it comes to this complicated issue.
The UN is warning that global food prices have climbed to record highs. The Food Price Index, which measures prices of basic commodities, is at its highest level since it was introduced 11 years ago. Political uncertainty in the Middle East has also led to soaring oil prices, which the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization says directly impacts the affordability of basic foodstuffs.
One of the strong linkages between the food and the energy sector is through biofuels. So when the oil prices are very high, there is definitely more incentive to produce more biofuels, and that means using more food crops to produce them. And this is what happened in 2007 and 2008, which was one of the factors that led to the sharp increase in prices of some of the food crops. And so far has been very neutral in the 2010-11. But obviously, the longer these prices remain high, the more we have to think that it could have a spill